Joel Klatt is with us. He is presented by MyBookie.ag. Code next round for that $500 up to $500 bet back bonus. MyBookie.ag. What is up, Klatt? Huh?
Hey, in lieu of flowers, Klatt, if you would just make a donation to our charities here in the state of Alabama for the death of the dynasty. No flowers, please. Just a donation.
No flowers.
Just a nice little donation.
Flowers die.
Yeah. What charity are we donating
It's
to?
the next round fund.
It's the M script A G script A Foundation. Make Alabama great again.
Oh, that's great.
I want to quote.
I mean, it makes me, guys. It honestly made me sad. Like at first, I turned on the game. You know, I get in the airplane, and thankfully they've got TV, so I'm like, okay, great. I turn on the game, and I'm like, I'm like, that's interesting. But it was pouring rain at the time. By the time I had left the shoe, got on the plane, and actually was watching the game, I believe it was 17-7, and it was pouring. And I was like, oh, probably a funky game. You know, like there was probably like the ball popped out, this or that. And then I start watching, and they're talking about it from a highlights perspective, and I keep watching, and I'm like, wait a second. Florida State's just the better team.
Yep.
And it wasn't particularly close, and that was jarring for me. It was jarring. And then I think that the next thing that honestly just kind of made me sad, honestly, because like it's tough to see the lack of effort, guys. Like it was really bad. You know, they weren't in shape. They weren't fast. They weren't physical. They didn't give great effort. The offensive line got absolutely decimated. I feel really bad for Ty Simpson. I'm sure that there's a large sector that's frustrated and like, oh, Ty Simpson ain't the guy. We tried him at South Florida, and it didn't work then, and it's not going to work now. He didn't really have a chance in the game that I watched based on the lack of effort and physicality and overall cohesion of the offensive line. And when you look now, there's also, you know, we won't send flowers Alabama's way, but flowers towards Florida State. Like they were much better than what we anticipated. In particular, this perfect marriage between Gus Malzahn and Castellanos, the quarterback. But you look at the rest of the schedule for Alabama, they have to be substantially better than what they were in week 1 just to finish 9-3. That's if they improve. If they don't improve substantially, that's going to be an 8-4 or 7-5 football team, which blows my mind.
Yeah, I mean, how does this happen? Because, again, I said earlier we had Clay Travis on, and I was like, I'm going to die on the Kalen DeBoer hill. Like, I was, all about him coming to the program. I thought it was a can't miss. He has won absolutely everywhere he's been. And, Joel, the one knock was he's not going to be able to recruit in the SEC. He's been great at bringing in big-time recruits. They held everybody together. They didn't have one transfer out after spring ball. Everybody talked about chemistry. Everybody talked about how together this team was. There was zero energy. Like, who do you put the blame on? Is it Kalen DeBoer? I mean, it's got to be, right?
Well, yeah. I mean, he's the head coach, so it's got to fall on him. And to your point, this was one of the reasons why I was like, you know what? Like, I kind of like Alabama this year because it did seem cohesive. He has won everywhere he's gone. Grubb was back. I was shocked. I was shocked by what I saw. Maybe this is just a total anomaly and it'll change. But I also, not only was there no energy or spark or effort or physicality, the game plan, guys. I mean, who's writing an apology note to Ryan Williams for putting him in the slot 90% of the time? Last year, he was in the slot 20% of his snaps. He was in the slot 90% of his snaps against Florida State, running into those safeties. Lo and behold, here he is. He's not a huge wide receiver. This guy is an operate in space, outside wide receiver. Why in the world was Ryan Williams in the slot 90% of the time? That's crazy. And he got beat up. He can't survive in there. It's one thing to put Jeremiah Smith in there, like 40% of the time. He's 6'4", 220 pounds. That's not Ryan Williams. So even the game plan was horrific. It was absolutely horrific. And that falls on Kalen DeBoer. And I'm with you, Lance. I thought that this was going to be much better. And everything points to the fact that it should be much better. Now, I will say this. Obviously, the shoes are massive and cannot be filled from Nick Saban. And most coaches will tell you, and this has gone by the wayside just a little bit in the last couple of years with the transfer portal, but most coaches will tell you that the toughest year is not actually your first year, but your second, because you still haven't, you still don't have a majority of the locker room that is your players versus the previous regime's players. Now, I don't know the exact breakdown and percentage, but maybe there's some of that, what there's still a hold on, and there's still a sector of the locker room that is looking for the urgency of what it was before, because Kalen DeBoer is not going to be Nick Saban, and it's not going to be 4th and 1 every single day in that building. And maybe that's what we saw on Saturday. But boy, that was a shocking turn of events.
We started our Saturday with the big noon kickoff, as we often do, and the big game, 1 versus 3 or 1 versus 2. And listen, I know the reaction to Arch Manning, but as I watched that, my love for Steve Sarkisian as a play caller and his creativity, I was waiting for some dynamic play calling from Steve Sarkisian that was going to help Arch Manning out, and I to my naked eye never saw that. Give me your thoughts on Arch and Sarkisian's play calling in that loss in Columbus.
So I was saying that, during the game, Jim, I was like, okay, this is the point in time. I remember at one point I said, when the offense is sputtering, I watched all their film last year, and it didn't matter if it was Arch playing quarterback or it was Quinn playing quarterback. If the offense sputtered at all, they would come out and immediately there would be one of those, really well-designed misdirection screens or something along the lines that got them going and got a first down and got some rhythm into the offense. And that never materialized. And I think 2 things happened. Number one is I think that Sark was playing too much into this idea of that Arch is different than Quinn, and that the offense is going to be different than Quinn, and it might be a little bit more straightforward and play action pass and pocket pass. That's number one. And number 2, the variation of defense that they were getting from Ohio State, I think spooked them into some really basic offense so that they could just identify what was going on and try to get targeted from a blocking perspective. So, Sark mentioned the safety disguises, in particular in the first half, that were going on, and they were very good for Matt Patricia's defense on Ohio State. But what he didn't mention is that the front structure was changing on a snap-in and snap-out basis. They were going from an even front to an odd front, from nickel 33 into a basic, under and over, and every single snap. And you could see the offensive linemen on the film, trying to get themselves targeted, and they were having a hard time. And I think that also spooked Sark into being a little bit more basic. Now, in hindsight, I'm sure he's thinking along the same lines that you and I are thinking. I wish I would have dialed something up, gotten Arch an easy completion somewhere, and tried to make life difficult on the defense and put them in conflict in some way with my formation or movement, which he never really did. Now to Arch. Arch did not play well. This will be the worst game that he plays in college, and that's fine, guys. That's just fine. It was his first road start. I think that we failed to realize just how inexperienced he is. There were some things that he did last year that were really special. And I think we also need to understand that Sark's job is always on the line, and he's always going to put his best option out there. And the fact is that he was adamant last year that Quinn Ewers was the starting quarterback, even with some people's frustration with Quinn Ewers. And we saw that on Saturday because there is some inexperience from Arch. He was very inaccurate. He made some really poor decisions early in the game, most specifically the 4th down that they did not convert on the first series. They went for it on a sneak and got it. Then they went for it. He runs an RPO. Totally wrong decision. Gets stopped. Ohio State ball, 1st and 10. And then, he never really recovered from that. I think it's really tough to play on the road as a quarterback in college. It's even more difficult when it's your first road start. And he's going to get better. So I have zero panic about Texas. Texas is going to be just fine. If we're rating panic meters, Alabama and Texas, panic meter for Texas, 0. They're going to be just fine. That defense is fine. Arch will get better. The offense will get fine. The schematics will grow. Panic meter for Alabama, 10. When you lose the locker room and you have that poor of effort, there's a problem. And so I'm not saying that it can't get fixed, but right now my panic meter for the Tide is 10.
Joel Klatt is with us from Fox each week, courtesy of mybookie.ag. $500 bet back bonus right now. You make your first bet when you use code next round, up to $500. They will cover that for you. You lose, right back into your account. You go again. That's when you sign up at mybookie.ag and use code next round. We talk so much about Arch that it's like Julian saying got forgotten. And his numbers weren't terrific, but in his first start, he'll never see a better defense than what he saw there. I mean, that's as good a college defense as you're going to see, I would believe, Joel. And he looked the part. I mean, like he didn't.
Yeah.
He was 13.
He handled it, didn't he?
He handled it. He was 13 to 20. Those all-star receivers actually had a few drops.
And by the way, three bad drops. He's 16 to 20 all day long.
Yeah, 2 from Jeremiah Smith. 2 drops out of him.
I know.
I mean, that's crazy.
It's interesting. He's got now 3 drops in college. He had a drop in the very first game last year, and now 2 drops in the very first game this year. So he's on pace to not have another drop the rest of the season. Julian, I thought, played really solid. Didn't do anything special. Even the ball to Carnell Tate was a bit underthrown, so it's not like that was a special throw. He missed Smith on the first 4th down. Should have thrown that one down the field. But the throw that he did make was dead on, and Max Clare just drops it, right? So it's not like he went out there and played poorly even on that snap. So I thought what was also telling is the confidence that Ryan Day had in his defense. That was as basic and conservative a game plan as you're going to get from the Ohio State offense. And they basically dialed it up twice. One on the 4th down, he doesn't throw it down to Smith, and then the other on a 1-on-1 to Carnell Tate, and it's a touchdown. And that offense will grow, and it will become more explosive. They did not run it well, and again, I think to your point about a better defense, that Texas defense, man, is good. They are really fast. I was impressed with their rebuilt interior, all those transfers in the middle of that defensive line at tackle. They brought in 5 transfers. Murad Watson was the guy that I was most impressed with. Alex January is going to be really, really good. They're both sophomores. So, the future is bright for Texas. And Sayan just handled it. And I got to tell you guys, I know that LSU was the most complete team of the weekend. There's no doubt. But I think in the back of everyone's mind, isn't it really scary that Ohio State just lost 14 draft picks and rolled out there and looked that elite on defense and could play that conservatively on offense and still beat the Texas Longhorns? Like, I think everybody around the country, and then specifically in the Big Ten, maybe even, it's like, oh crap. It's like they're great again, and they're going to be elite again, and they're going to be right there for a national championship.
Yeah, I know it wasn't the best look. Matt Patricia is the head coach of the Lions with the pencil behind the ear and everything, but why did we think there was going to be such a step down from Jim Knowles to Matt Patricia?
That's a great question. If anything, I mean, this is going to be, that defense was so good last year, but it took them some adjusting. They weren't great early last year. Now, they finished at number 1, but remember Oregon got after them, guys. And that game, I believe, was early October. And they had to change the way that they rushed the quarterback and did some things. I will tell you, there was a couple of wrinkles in that defense. And more specifically, the disguises of coverage and also the disguises of pressure. That if I'm their future opponents watching the film, I'm like, oh crap. This is going to be a top 3 defense in college football. Again, the linebacker core as a duo, there might be better individual linebackers, but as a duo, Sonny Styles and Arvell Reese, I think are or can lay claim to be one of, if not the best duos in the country. And then that secondary didn't miss a beat, might be even better with Downs as an older player, Jermaine Matthews out there making plays, including the interception. And then let me just give you a quick example of, and I pointed it out during the game if you were watching, but they were in kind of a mug alignment, mug meaning the linebacker right up into the face of the offensive line on a 3rd down. And it ended up being a sack, but Arvell Reese, he's in a mug alignment, and then he poses like he's going to drop back into coverage, like, oh, I'm faking the blitz, and I drop back, and he just delays for a second, and then he comes back into the pressure. That doesn't happen in college film, guys. I don't see that level of detail and that level of disguise. That's an NFL wrinkle of just a guy saying like, hey, you know what makes this really good is not just delaying with your eyes on them, but acting like you're going out. Look, like what would you normally do if you're going to run out into coverage? I would look up number 2. Well, then look up number 2 and then, delay into your blitz. Those little wrinkles are really tough to overcome from an offensive perspective. And that Patricia defense, could I say that outside of the defensive line's pass rush, like they didn't miss a beat?
You mentioned LSU passing, but that was such an impressive win for me. Talk more.
So good.
Do you think that has lasting power with this team, and is LSU the team to beat in the SEC all of a sudden? Do you think that's
There's no doubt. And by the way, LSU saved the SEC from just an abomination of an opening weekend. That's true, though.
No, it's
right?
100% true. Tennessee was going to be the SEC's best win. Tennessee
right,
over Syracuse.
Against Syracuse.
Or Auburn.
Or Auburn over Baylor, one of those two, yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, we could certainly talk about that game. Like you could make a strong argument that Baylor's kicking themselves, giving it up. What was it? They had the ball inside the 10 twice, don't score. They give up a kick return. They're up and down the field. So as good as Auburn was early, I didn't think it was as impressive a win as if you just really look at what happened. I think Baylor lost that game more than anything else. And I'm sure everyone, Tiger fans right now, are just
they're gonna love
turning the station.
They love what you said about Alabama, and then he comes back with that.
Well, I mean, it's true. It's true. So I'm still a very much wait and see on Auburn. Okay. Very wait and see. LSU, however, that was, and I said this, just a couple minutes ago, that was the most complete team in the country. There were some things for Ohio State they're going to have to fix. The backs didn't look good. They didn't present a lot of pressure with their defensive ends. So there's some things that they have to develop. Man, LSU rolled out there and they looked incredible. And to win against that experienced team, Clemson, in their house, in that environment, that was so impressive. I was really looking forward to seeing Nussmeier play this year, and he clearly improved. He did not make the mistake that was kind of a hallmark of his game a year ago. And then the Blake Baker in that defense, guys, like you talk about 3, 4, 5 steps forward from what they were a year ago. And watching Harold Perkins run around and that defensive line just own an experienced offensive line for Clemson, that's hands down now, I think. And we don't know about Georgia because who'd they play? Marshall. So it's like we don't know. But I know LSU is a premium team in the SEC. Georgia might join them. But Alabama certainly isn't. And A&M didn't look great. Tennessee will wait and see. They're trying to sing Joey Aguilar's praises like T. Martin walked back in the locker room, but it's like let's just wait and see on that. But LSU, if I'm in the SEC, I'm thinking to myself, okay, I think that the title rolls through the Tigers.
I mean, not an ideal result with Notre Dame losing on Sunday night, but if I said CJ Carr is an upgrade from the experienced Sam Hartman and Riley Leonard, is that accurate?
I thought there were moments of that, yes. I think that you see. So with a young player, you're always going to get a lower floor. So those experienced guys, they raise the floor because they just don't make a ton of mistakes. But there was a very clear cap on their game, in particular Leonard, who didn't throw the ball well. With Carr, you see that ceiling rise. So that cap is much higher, but the floor is lower. So low floor, high ceiling type of a guy, to use like a draft term. I was really impressed with Miami. I was really impressed because I still think Notre Dame is a very good football team. Like there's 3 teams that lost this week that I still kept in the top 10 because I know they're still a really good team. Texas is still a really good team. Clemson is still a really good team. And Notre Dame is still a really good team. I was impressed with the environment. That's the first time that I've really seen since the old Orange Bowl, Miami really get it going in environment-wise, and I thought that was special. Beck is clearly healthy, and you're starting to see like, oh yeah, maybe it was the horrendous wide receiver play at Georgia last year that caused him so many problems. Remember, they led the country in drops last year at Georgia, so he was scapegoated for some of their issues offensively. He looked good. Their line of scrimmage looked good. And so because of that, like Notre Dame should be fine. It becomes a much bigger game against it becomes a much bigger game against A&M when they play A&M. But as CJ Carr gets more experience, that offense is going to be more explosive. They're going to play better on the outside, and that team's not going anywhere. That team's absolutely going to be a quarterfinal team or more, and specifically because of their young quarterback.
Hey, before you go, it was a very nice touch by your network to show Lee Corso's final pick in the stadium there. I'm curious, you had a great vantage point of it. How cool was it to watch? You and Gus already up in the press box, obviously looking down on it. Just as a fan of college football and a guy that grew up watching Corso, how cool was that to see in person?
Incredibly cool. And I was sitting there and you're taking in that scene, and in some ways that scene was created by Lee, not just because of what was going on right there, but because of his decades of love and passion for the sport. And I've said this many times before, you know, what we do is in many ways on the shoulders of what ESPN built in college football. They created college football. They built their network on college football. Game Day built college football up into something that it is now. And in so many ways, that passion and love stems from Lee. And he was really the heartbeat of that show for so long in the headgear pick. And so to honor him like that, that was a no-brainer from our side, and it was a no-brainer from their side. I saw Burke Magnus before the game. He's an executive for ESPN. And we both just said the same thing. It's like, we're so glad we're doing this. This is the right thing to do for the sport, for Lee, because in so many ways, the magnitude of what we were about to see between Ohio State and Texas and the magnitude of college football in many ways is because of Lee Corso. So tip of the cap, man. And I certainly am one that, you know, I'm going to miss Lee every single Saturday. There's no doubt, but what a career. And I'm certainly thankful that he's been in the sport.
Is there a chance though that showed me y'all are going to share Fox and ESPN ABC the playoffs in the future? Was that did that get worked out while you and Bert while you guys were talking in the press box?
Yeah, me and Burke on the sidelines, hammering out a deal.
Yeah.
No,
I'm sure you guys are probably keeping phone numbers, right?
I mean, listen, I would do anything to be involved in the playoff, and oh, you guys are going to get me in trouble.
No, don't do it.
The playoff would be better with multiple networks.
I agree. I agree.
The biased commentary last year was egregious. We all know that. That's specifically in one of the games, you know, and it would be better if all of us were pushing the entire sport forward. That's what's so beautiful about the NFL is that all the next networks are pushing it forward into the postseason and trying to make everything better versus operating in these silos. You know, in college football, we operate way too much in silos, whether it's the conferences or the networks, and we put, you know, fences around our products and things of that nature. And the sport would be better overall if we all shared it, or if two shared it. I believe that.
Yeah. Not all, two. Détente.
He is.
I'm sure Tennessee fans would be dying for like, well, we want Joel Klatt to call our games.
Iowa State in Ames. That's where you'll see the Big Noon Kick with Klatt. Gus Johnson wearing his own shirt this week, and the AAG.
Or who knows? Maybe not. I might bring him an extra.
Did y'all see that? He left his shirt. Where's he live in L.A.?
Can I tell you the story? Can I tell you the story?
Please do.
And I'm glad that it all worked out and everything was fine. But I sit with my producer about 3.5 hours, almost 4 hours before the game, and we just go over like camera placements, you know, and like because some games we have more equipment than others, so it's like, okay, where do we have hat cams? Where do we have so on and so forth? Because I need to know based on the replays that I'm going to ask for during the game. So we're going through kind of our meeting, and his phone rings, and it's Gus. and he's like, "Hey, what's up?" And Gus was like, "Hey, we have a minor emergency." And I kind of perked up, and I was like, "Oh boy!" I was like, "What's going on?" Is he? I'm hoping like, is he okay? Hopefully he didn't get in a car accident, something like that. So he says, he just says to our producer, "What size shirt you wear?" And I was like, what do we got here? I thought it was a stain or something like that. But the fact that it wasn't, I don't have a shirt. What size shirt you wear? Like, what you got? I'm gonna need this shirt off your back.
I'm a little like Gus stays in these 5-star hotels.
can't
Like,
believe it.
I'm
Yeah.
surprised he couldn't roll downstairs to like the men's shop.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, this is the problem with noon kickoffs. The men's shop ain't open at 8 a.m. You know.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
So,
I forget which
that was-
trip we were on. LT, we were on some playoff trip in the Saban years. LT ended up getting a shirt he wore out one night from
It was in Nashville.
Lost and
No,
Found.
it was SEC Media Days
Okay.
last year.
Yeah.
And we went and did some man on the street stuff. It was 1,000 degrees, as you can imagine, July down on Broadway in Nashville. So I come back to do these interviews, and I'm completely soaked. So I went up to the security at what hotel was that? Was
That
it
was the
Omni?
the Hilton, right? The
We'll
new
just,
Hilton.
we'll
yeah.
just
Yeah.
say, since our buddy's on, it's a graduate property. So we'll
Hyatt,
just
I
say,
don't
yeah.
know.
got
Well,
it.
I
Yeah.
went to the security
Yeah.
guard and I was like, "Hey, do you happen to have like a place where I could get another shirt?" And he was like, "I got some cool shirts in Lost and Found." So he brings me this freaking shirt. I probably got so many freaking like skin predators from this thing, but it was like a cowboy shirt, and he ended up wearing it for the rest of the.
the pearl buttons that you button up the cowboy
Yeah,
shirt.
that's right. Oh, I love
That's
it, man.
terrific.
That's great.
So mention that to Gus next time he picks a shirt. Just check Lost and Found,
Lost and
down at the desk.
Shout out to Rob Stone for traveling with two shirts. though.
I can guarantee. Well, because Big Noon Kickoff, they have like staff and wardrobe and everything, and it's like we pack our own stuff, and so they have wardrobe there, and thankfully we got.
I just didn't know
extra
Rob
stuff.
was that small.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Rob and Gus. I didn't know they were the same size. I mean, Gus looked great. All right, so there you go. It is Iowa State with the Big
Can't
Noon
wait for that
Kick. Yeah, it's going to be a good one. That's a fun game. Iowa State. I mean, who's not a Big 12
Hey, Rocco
favorite?
back. We talked
Yeah.
about him last week. Dunaway's not a fan.
Who's not a Big 12 favorite?
It's not that I'm not a fan. I just don't think he's one of the top 5 best quarterbacks in college football.
Okay, that's fair.
Yeah, we
That's
just said he
fair.
could start for half the SEC.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's also fair.
Yep.
Yeah.
Hey, so could Josh Hoover. I watched him last night. It was Big 12 quarterbacks.
Yeah,
season.
so could Josh Hoover.
Yeah.
Heck, Cal's quarterback last year lit Syracuse up.
Yeah.
He's back. Yeah.
All right, Klatt, we'll see you Saturday from Ames. Have a
All
good
right,
one,
boys.
buddy. Thank you.
Have a good one.